Ben, thank you for joining me. I got Ben Clouser from YoungBuck Management, co-founder. Thank you for joining me on the pod today.
Yeah, appreciate you having me. Yeah, this is awesome.
And I just was, I got introduced to your intern over here, and I was like, man, I guess I really haven't met you. But it seems like I'd already met you before today. But no, I really appreciate you coming on. But
of course.
To give the audience some context, I want to allow you to, give us a Cliff Notes version of, who you are and how you got to where you are today. But, you're more on the name, image, likeness side, but like how you got into that side and catch us up to speed on how you got into it.
Yeah, so I've always been into sports. Like, that was my passion, growing up. Obviously did other stuff, but, college game day was always up, 9 a.m. East Coast time watching it, diehard college football fan. It was always my favorite sport, too. I love NFL, NBA, and all that type of stuff, but my main sport is college football. But my dad and uncle were 25, 30-year agents in the NFL space, MLB space, a couple NBA guys. So I always saw the passion that they had and really what you could become in the sports industry. But I think the biggest thing was, I just know I wanted to get into sports, but I really never wanted to be an agent, right? Just because I saw the industry, how sleazy it was. My dad and uncle always did it the right way, but I saw, money getting involved and, parents getting involved and other agents, doing basically illegal stuff, to take their players and stuff. So I was always like, I never wanted to be in that, but I always wanted to be in sports. I actually wanted to be a GM. We had a lot of connections with the Cardinals, Steve Keim, some of that organization. So I was set on doing that. It's a big reason I came out to Arizona State, was to kind of build that connection and go from there. And I had family out here and stuff and just a big network and stuff. But I think the biggest thing was I wanted to be in sports. So when NIL came out, I was actually a senior in college at Arizona State, and I was pretty much set to go work, with the Cardinals or another organization that I was talking to. But Ray, my business partner, he knew some Arizona State football players, and was kind of like, hey man, we should try to do something with this, maybe their managers and stuff. And at that time, my dad and uncle were still doing law, but they weren't doing sports. So it's kind of they were kind of done with it. They retired. Their last NFL player was 2017. So kind of done with that, but I was like, sure, Ray, I'll set you up with a meeting with them. And I still remember that date. It was the day before the first Arizona State football game in 2022. And, we got, meeting with me, my dad, uncle, and Ray all in person there. Everyone was in town. And we just really kind of developed the vision there. We're no one's doing this. The players need us. And my biggest thing is just helping people and being a good resource to people. I think a lot of people nowadays chase money, or they chase, fame, or they chase, whatever it's going to help them personally. But what I realized is it's not like the NFL where you kind of know what you have. Obviously you're helping the kids, or helping the guys, but ultimately they already have the money. They already, are 23, 24, but these young kids, they don't know what's going on in NIL space. And my biggest thing when I tell all my players, tell every player who even I don't represent, it's a short game. So you got to profit while you can, right? Because ultimately one knee injury, your career's over. And you might, your whole identity was football, basketball, baseball growing up. And at the end of the day, that could get right 1 second done. So so that we had that meeting, and I wasn't completely sold on it. And then I just some of my Penn State players and stuff just connected through some of my connections there. They started reaching out to us, and it just organically grew. And then my dad and uncle were like, this is a sweet opportunity, and they kind of got their urge back, so they were like, I'll help you guys do this. And then my cousin always wanted to be an NFL agent, so he came on board too, as our NFL agent. So we're full tier, but I'm primarily NIL. But we saw this, and we're just this vision's here. It's so new. It's such a need in the marketplace. So we were just why not go after it? And these last 3 years, I'd say we're one of the fastest growing companies, NIL-wise agency in the country. So it's pretty fun how we do it. Rep guys now 27 different schools, 60-plus clients, all the way from high school to now NFL, and just been building that thing. And I think we just saw the vision, family environment. We call Ray our long-lost brother because he's a part of the family as well now. But yeah, it's all Clousers, my dad, uncle, cousin, me, Ray, and obviously a couple other employees and stuff under us. But it's just been cool to kind of build it together and kind of see the vision. And we just leave our ego at home too. We all know that 5, 10 years from now this could be a massive thing, and we just take it day by day. But that's really my background. Never wanted to be an agent, never wanted to get in the industry. So it's kind of funny when I tell people that, but it just really just kind of came organically. And we saw that, Ray's weaknesses are my strengths, my weaknesses are Ray's strengths. And we kind of saw that together. And just having the backing of a national law firm with my dad, uncle, and cousin is massive for us. It's literally taking us from here to there. So it's been a lot of fun.
It reminds me, my dad was in the restaurant business, did it for over 30 years. And people would always ask me, do you want to take over the restaurant? Absolutely not. I want nothing to do with it. But it kind of sounds like you had the same mindset up until you kind of saw, hey, there might be something else. And now having, gotten to know Ray, the blending, I could definitely see how the relationship can blend together, and it's cool to hear that. Hey, I might have an idea here, and then I had no idea. So they hadn't necessarily, meaning your father and uncle, hadn't repped anybody in the NFL since 2017. Yeah. So it'd been some time, but obviously there was a compelling enough conversation that you guys had that obviously that turned around. So what was it, that you really felt that, for your uncle and father, that was like, wait a second, I think they're onto something here. What do you feel like that was?
Yeah, so I think it's all about believing in your service and the product, right? We could have done a lot of other stuff that at the time maybe would have made us more money, right? Sure. But we thought we had such a good service, and I think that's why our retention rate with players is so high. I mean, us compared to even a big agency, we retain pretty much all of our players. It's been very rare that we've ever lose a player because we saw the service there, right? Me being younger, Ray being younger, we can relate to these kids. Even our youngest client, he's 16 years old. I'm 9 years older than him, but we're still kind of in the same generation. I can talk to him, all stuff like that. But we needed the experience from the overhead, you guys, because we didn't necessarily have that at the time. So it's kind of like a perfect mix between young and old. A lot of agencies,
sure.
They'll put a 50-year-old kid or a 50-year-old guy on an 18-year-old kid, 20-year-old kid, and they just can't relate at all. Yeah. And it's kind of one of those things they're not like that. So me and Ray kind of are the big brothers to some of the players, but then you also have the experienced lawyers and agents, stuff like that. So it's kind of a cool blend. So I think they saw that too. They're like, hey, we were done being 60 years old and running for players, but Ben and Ray can do that, and then we'll take all the overhead and then we'll just all split it together. So they saw that, but also we really do right by the players. We're all about player empowerment, helping the players, because ultimately, they need that advisor, right? When these big agencies, money, it's just it hits maybe for a little bit, but then, a guy gets hurt, they dump him to the side, and then they're screwed. So what we do is we help them from a legal side, open up LLCs under their names and stuff, because, the collective money, the NIL money is all, you got to pay taxes on it, right? They're not W-2, so you got to go and you got to pay taxes on it. So we do that stuff, educate them on that, look over their contracts, and we're not penny pinching either. There's some times where it's hey man, we don't need our commission. Take your money, you need it, more than us, and enjoy that process, because it's a long process, right? It's my whole dream is 20 years from now, seeing my clients make the NFL through, and I'm like uncles to their kids. That's kind of the overall approach, and my dad and uncle always took it that way. So I think it was just a perfect synergy, and like I told you earlier, there's no ego at the door, and we're all on the same mission, and we all understand the past. So I think once we saw the vision, it was definitely rocky, man. Our first year making no money and, trying to get guys, and it was new. It's new for everyone. NIL, it's still new. It's a wild, wild west, people call it, and it still is today, especially with the revenue sharing and stuff. But everyone saw the vision, and I think it was easy for everyone to jump on board, because we were like, hey, this is what it is. We all see it. Let's just go get it.
Well, and I think, if you're building a relationship starting at 16, and they become draft eligible when they're 21 or a junior, right?
Yeah.
So you have a runway of 5-6 years to where, from a retention standpoint, if you don't retain them, which might happen here and there, but it's you got 5 or 6 years of a relationship and providing them value, and then, oh, by the way, we have some experience at the back end. So when 100%. That time, hopefully, if it happens, right, there's no guarantees. Like you alluded to the fact that you're one knee injury away from your career changing or maybe being over, right? So it's interesting, but it's as if you're the barrier of entry, right? Versus, hey, if we didn't provide or do any NIL, right? Which you said, maybe in the beginning, not every agency was doing it because it was hey, we don't see the value in this, but now you have to.
You have to.
Absolutely have to. Now, since I interviewed Ray last year, a lot, actually, I think it was early in the spring, if I remember right, but even since then, a lot has changed. And you mentioned revenue sharing, so I want to hit on that while we're on the topic. Give us an up-to-date on where we are with that for people that know nothing about NIL at a basic level.
Yeah, so the House settlement, there was a whole dropping thing of, the Congress and all this passing, all this stuff. So it was July, and what happened is the schools can now revenue share the money they make from the TV deals, from ticket sales, all that stuff, to the players now. And it's always should have been like that, right? The players are the product. We tell all the players that, college guys, for example, Saquon Barkley, Penn State, he absolutely sold them all these jerseys, TV deals, all this stuff, never got a dime in college. So it's kind of crazy. And NIL opened that up, but that was only their likeness, but now it's basically like the NFL, right? So the NFL salary cap's, whatever, 160, whatever. College now is 21. 20.5, 21, it's going to keep going up. But that money can be dispersed to the players. So it's technically still not a pay-for-play, but it is in a sense, right? So you can distribute that money through. And the difference between now and NIL compared to what it was before it was booster-funded collectives, right? So, you know, this big booster from Ohio State, but here's $1 million to your collective, and they use that $1 million to pay 4 players, whatever. And it's grown and grown and grown because you see these schools, you know, falling behind, so like the big boosters come out and they throw. But now with the revenue sharing, there still is the collective and booster part, but it's not as needed anymore, but also it's not as unregulated, right? So like now there's like this college sports commission, so they're going in and regulating the boosters and regulating the other side of it, the collectives and all stuff. So there still is a collective, and they still do pay the players in certain ways, but there has to be better deliverables, there has to be fair market value. Last year you could just pay a kid $1 million and do an Instagram post, and that's your $1 million, right?
And
but now
nothing that needed to be in writing either.
No, it's crazy. It's crazy. Yeah, it's crazy. But now with the revenue sharing, like all that stuff there's not necessarily quote unquote deliverables, but they're under contract. They make a certain salary per year, and the coach still determines that, right? So if a coach is like, oh, an offensive lineman's worth 500, quarterback's worth $1 million, like there's no market value to it. And what's tough about it, and what's tough on our end and the players' end, it's not like the NFL where all contracts are public. The MLB, all contracts are public, right? The NIL, you don't know how much guys are making. So I obviously have like a lot of connections to kind of know like the general market. But when you see, oh, this guy's making $3 million, in reality, he might only be making 1.5. You don't know that, right? So that's the big issue for us, and the big issue for colleges is like you can't be like, hey, my quarterback or this quarterback at Ohio State makes $3 million, so I'm worth around that number, but it's like you don't know. It's not public information. So I think that's the next step is with the rev share contracts. I think it's going to become public information, or at least industry information, because it'll even it out. But now you have the $20.5 million that can go to football, basketball, all split up. So, for example, Penn State, I think, spending $15 million on football, 3 on basketball, and then 3 on the other sports. But you will get the collective on top of that, but the deliverables are going to be different. So it's like, hey, you have to have 4 appearances, you know, $30,000 per appearances. So it is a little more regulated now with the revenue sharing. But people think like, oh, the revenue sharing just capped it at 20.5. Like, no, it still could go higher, 30, 40, yeah.
So that's where like you would bring in, like you mentioned, like the donor. But now the difference is like there's no more, you know, hey, do this for $1 million, and it's like they might have shown up there
one time.
But did they actually do?
Yes.
So then, are they putting that in writing then?
Yes. So that's in writing. So the rev share is in writing, and then also to the third-party collective deals are as well. But what they're doing now is they're funneling them through businesses. So for example, a car dealership will pay the guy $500,000, and he has to do 3 appearances at the car dealership. And it is a sense of like, where's that money coming from? But it's flown through the businesses and the boosters and all that stuff too. So because at the end of the day, like if a person wants to give a player $100,000 to go to his daughter's birthday, like what's the value? And like there's no market value of that. You know, he's paying what he wants to pay. But now it's this College Sports Commission. They're kind of not on top of their game right now with this whole thing because there's just so many deals and stuff going through. But they are regulating the deals and the players and all that stuff like that.
So then are they catching stuff that's like, hey, or is that even that's talked about, or is that more behind the scenes?
I think they have, but like they're getting sued and stuff too because like you can't determine the market value if someone's willing to pay that, right? So we have to submit our deals, like our third-party deals, now through this app called NIL Go. It's been a nightmare to deal with, but so now the schools and the College Sports Commission can see every deal. Before, each school was different. Some of them were like, you can do the NIL deal as long as it meets state laws. You don't have to send us the deals or whatever. But some colleges, like ASU, for example, you just put it on the app and submit it to them. So we've been used to doing that, but now it's like every college is on NIL Go, and it's just one uniform thing, but...
So and that's to essentially submit these contracts, and then this commission kind of overviews.
Yeah.
Man, oh man.
But there's so many deals though, right? Like in football, basketball, baseball, so many deals going into it.
Just
it's like,
even for one a guy
school.
like Scat,
it's
right?
Crazy.
Like
it's
Scat
crazy.
would have probably a bunch of inquiries, and then trying to determine what's right. Like you made a pretty good example. Like think about if you wind the clock back, like if I'm a wealthy person, live in LA, and I want Reggie Bush to hang out at my birthday party for $100K, like how are you to tell me that it's not worth $100K? You know, like what I see what you're saying. That's a tricky spot to be in, though. Like, and I don't know how. So then in that situation where they're getting sued, then they have to like go to court and mediate what's the fair market value.
And I think some of them are just dropping them to there. It's not worth it. So this actually like ties into what we're doing now. So one of our top clients, Bo Jackson, Ohio State, is starting running back at Ohio State, true freshman. Just the name alone, Bo Jackson, super marketable and stuff. And just him being a running back, Ohio State's market and stuff. I mean, deals have just been coming in for him. But like his signature rates are, different stuff, right, for each, private signing or card deal or stuff. Or, just when Ohio State wants to do an appearance and stuff like that. So we've had to submit a lot of deals to this app, and like some of them, having time getting approved, and like there's timelines on this stuff too. Like, hey, I want this deal done October 25th, and you submit it on October 18th or whatever, like, and the commission doesn't get it done in 7 days, can you not do the deal? So that's kind of like the gray line, what it's in. But yeah, with a guy like that, when he has deals coming his way and stuff, like the market just kind of flows, right? Like it's hard to say, oh, his signature's worth 20 or his, appearance is worth 5,000, whatever, because it's going to keep changing, right? As he grows, as he keeps, producing and stuff. So like there isn't really a market value from the brand side. There is more of a market value from like, hey, a running back, a P4 running back makes X amount and that type of stuff. So you can kind of compare the two. But like I said, it's not public information. Like we don't know how much a quarterback makes somewhere unless you're in the circle, right? So you kind of have to like dig in. And that's what's nice about having connections at these colleges and stuff. We can kind of fish out some information. But yeah.
Well, and that's where like, you look at On3, and sometimes those valuations are like...
Yeah, they're just not accurate at all.
Because it's like, where are they
getting that stuff?
Getting that information? And some of it could be legitimate, but it's also like, man, that seems kind of high for, Now, one of the questions I had was, as you're having conversations with schools on the behalf of, advising, right? Because you're not their agent until they actually sign pen to paper, right? Do they have to say they go to you and say, hey, we're going to get your right guard $500,000 and we're going to do X, Y, and Z? Do they have to follow through on what they say? Because that's something that I've heard of is like not always what you're being told, and I've heard that from different college coaches. Where, hey, you better make sure where you're going. They're actually following through. Is that they could just be giving you a bunch of lip service and then not following through. Have you seen that? Is that stuff still going on, or is it squashed?
So it's a blessing it hasn't happened to us because we have a good law firm taking care of that and making sure that's all in writing and protected. So our whole approach is like, you don't sign your deal, you don't commit to that school until we see that deal, until we get that deal finalized. Because ultimately, even like high school, right? Like you see these guys committing at like 16, 17 years old, but they haven't done their deal. So once you commit to a school, you lose all your leverage, right? These guys can drag you out and say, they'll be like, I'll pay you $300. But until you see it in writing, you don't have anything. That's when we say everything, exactly. Especially with coaches leaving, all stuff like that. So the transfer portal is definitely a lot different than high school. In the transfer portal sense, that's one of the first combos that comes up. It's first, if not second, is how much is he worth, how much does he want, whatever, and we kind of go that route. So we kind of know beforehand. And before we even take a visit, so we had a kid that went from Northern Illinois to Texas Tech. Before he even took the visit, we told the guy, you better have that in writing, because he might sign on the visit, but you need to have that in writing, done deal, this amount, boom. And they followed through. That's why I love what they're doing at Texas Tech and building there. But a lot of schools will kind of play the players along, and that's what these families don't understand is these schools aren't on their side. I'm sure the coaches, and I know a lot of coaches, Kenny, all these guys, they're great humans. They do care about the players, but they're also running a business, right? So if they can kind of keep these players at lower numbers or drag out the payments or maybe delay them a payment or not give them a payment, they can use that to pay another player, right? So it's kind of like the NFL with the cap now. It's like you have to be strategic how you do it. So I've heard players, get shorted 50 grand or get shorted, 200,000 or whatever because their advisor agent didn't do it the right way, or they did it on their own. And that's what is so frustrating to me when some of the NIL guys, especially high-end guys, are like, I don't need an agent until the NFL. Well, you're just missing out on a ton of money, and you could screw yourself over. So there's this whole lawsuit, too. University of Florida player. I think he's on the Bucks practice squad or whatever. The collective still owed him $300,000 when he left, and he's in a lawsuit with them. But in writing, he didn't have it. So at the end of the day, the school's going to win that, right? But his advisor didn't do a good job of going through that. That's what's nice about our team. We've reviewed collective contracts, revenue share contracts, third-party deals from pretty much every college in the country, Big Ten, SEC, ACC, Big 12. So we kind of know what they're trying to sneak in or what language they're putting in and all that.
So the good schools, it sounds like, are putting it in writing, and they're getting it done. The ones that aren't, more or less, are maybe having those conversations verbally, but aren't following through on their word on the other side of things. Man, oh man. So your whole point of view is educating the clients, but then also saying we're not doing anything. unless we get it in writing.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the scenario in which a coach leaves. Like, perfect example, Penn State right now, right? A guy leaves. Obviously, it's in the middle of the year. I mean, I'd love to talk about that as well.
Yeah.
But in the case where you have a player commit to a school, coach leaves, the carousel does happen. How do you protect your player in that instance? Is there something to where, hey, is it year-to-year commitments, or is this hey, you're coming to this school unless you get drafted, this is a 4-year commitment?
Yeah, great question, because I feel like a lot of people don't understand that. But so a lot of these NIL deals, they're either 1 year or multi-year. We do like keeping 1-year deals, unless it's like a high school player coming in and he's like, I'm going to be there at least 2 years or whatever. We'll do a longer-term deal, but most of them are year-to-year. But what we put in our contracts is we put in, if the coach leaves and he hits the portal, there's no penalty, there's no buyback and stuff like that. I mean, we try to get all buybacks with the portal out of the contracts. So if you hit the portal, you have to pay this, or you don't get this. We try to get all that out, but sometimes the schools just like won't budge, because they're like, well, he hits the portal. But that's the first thing we put as coaches. If the coach leaves and the player decides to leave, he's still entitled to all his money because that's out of his control, right? So sure. I think that's the biggest thing with that. But the hardest thing about the coaches leaving is like we don't know what the next year is, right? So like we have some players on Penn State that we thought we're going to be there for a couple of years with Franklin. Now, I'm not saying they're not going to be there, but it opens up Pandora's box now because he's going to be the new coach. Who's he going to bring in and stuff?
Sure.
So there is a lot of issue with that, right? Like, for example, we have guys going to ASU, and they're like, I'm playing with Kenny at least, a couple of years. So we kind of know we preset the negotiation with the schools. Out of high school, like, hey, this is what he's going to make first year, and we kind of set it up. And they're like, but if he balls the next year, and the guy's like, yeah. So even though the second year and third year aren't in writing, there's kind of a game plan throughout, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But with the new coaches leaving, like, you can't do that, right? So it just opens up Pandora's box, but we try to protect the players from, putting on the contract if the coach leaves, no buyback, stuff like that. So that's kind of the biggest protection we put in there. And agents don't look at that stuff. Like, they don't do it, and I'm not like bad-mouthing anyone, but they just don't even think of that next level, or they don't even care. Like, I got the deal done, boom, doesn't take a lot of my time, I get this money already entitled to me, but they don't look out for the player. But all the contracts, we put that in.
I feel like you have to.
You have to.
From a protection standpoint,
Yes.
This was before NIL, but who recruited me was not who I was coached by at Indiana State. And, I probably still would have gone there because it wasn't a huge, player where I was getting recruited by all these different schools. But it's like, it does happen.
Yeah.
And coaches are going to leave to take the other opportunity, or in this case at Penn State, it wasn't that they left for an opportunity, more or less. It was a separation. So touching on that, what are your thoughts on, Coach Franklin at Penn State and, a situation there? Because you alluded to the fact that you got some guys there, and obviously there's going to be some, some questions that come to the end of the season, and hopefully there's some answers over there, because I'm sure that you're kind of wondering who's next in line. Yeah,
so that's a great question, because I grew up like a big Penn State fan. My dad has repping guys out of Pennsylvania forever. I was born in Harrisburg. So that's kind of always been like our big tie school. Obviously ASU, a couple others as well. But seeing that was actually kind of like heartbreaking, because I did appreciate what Franklin did for us. I think he did a lot for us, and I think he's a great coach. I think he's a top 5-10 coach, or top 10-15 coach in the country. But it was kind of one of those things where it was like almost like a breakup, where it was like you were appreciative of both sides, but for both parties, I think it was good to separate, because there was just a lot of stuff this year that didn't go as planned, and I think even Franklin could acknowledge that it wasn't up to Penn State standard. I really think they're a top 5-10 program in the country, just with their resources and everything, and I think the fans have kind of reacted to that, and I think that's why we like sending players there. They develop third most NFL players in the last 5 drafts, stuff like that. But I think it was kind of time for it to go, and talking to guys, boosters, coaches there, I think everyone kind of knew that it was coming after, this 3-game stretch. It was unpredictable. Second highest preseason odds to win the national championship, so it was kind of like, out of nowhere. But we have a couple guys there, including the quarterback this week who's going to start, Ethan Grunkemeyer, and they were recruited by Franklin. Like you said, they were recruited by Franklin, coaching staff. Who knows what that staff's going to be next year? So it puts us in a predicament where it's like we need to assess way different at the end of the year, even throughout the year, compared to what we were thinking. Because if Franklin would have came back, probably these guys would have come back. We have some high school players that are going to Penn State, so the 2026 class, we've already done the deal with Penn State, so we're kind of like, are they going to open it back up? So this last week, we've just been touching base with all the guys, seeing what's their next step. So from our point of view, it makes it a little bit harder because it's just the unpredictability, but we're prepared for it and all that stuff like that. But it was sad, man. I mean, our one of our top clients there, Dom DeLuca, 3-year captain, senior. This is his last year, and his coach gets fired, like that. So it's hard to see that happen, but you got to keep the guys positive. We've touched base with all of them, and their spirits are uplifting. But yeah, it was definitely tough. But our job is to go in there and make sure that after this year, all of our guys are set up. So yeah, we're prepared for that.
Yeah, it's a tough, because I'm trying to put my shoes in the the athletic director's position, and it's like he's going to want to try to fill that role.
Yeah.
Probably the day the season's over,
Yeah.
because you're going to have more than likely every player at least entering the portal just to see. Hey, what else is out there, right? And you can't fault the player. You can be mad at the system and the the world that we live in name, image, likeness, but you can't fault the player.
Yeah.
I went to a mid-market team, and I very well know that due to the landscape, like, it is what it is.
Yeah.
But a lot of these mid-market schools are now junior colleges,
Yeah.
and what I mean by that is, like, if a kid has a good year, like, you're not keeping him.
Yeah.
And, I know specifically on the baseball side, it's like, shoot, how can you fault a kid that might have been getting, 5 to 10K for whatever, right? And then a big SEC, ACC school says, hey, we'll pay you $200,000 to come here. I would take it too.
100%.
So I understand that, but it makes it challenging from a mid-market level.
Yeah.
It's like you're basically recruiting an all-new team every year.
Yeah.
It's exhausting.
Yeah, it is,
and but it's the world we're in, so you can't fight it.
Yeah, and I think like the biggest thing with that is like these fans and these coaches are just like so selfish and closed-minded, because they're like, oh, college football, they threw in college football and stuff, but you got to put yourself in these players' shoes. They have 4 or 5 years. That could be the most money they ever make in their life, right? So it's like, easy injury, like we were talking about, one knee injury, your career's on. We had one of our star players at Texas Tech, he just broke his ankle for the week and stuff. So it's just like one of those things where it's like you never know when your career could change and be done, right? So
if something like that happens.
Yeah,
right?
exactly, man. So yeah, but it's frustrating because like it's ruining college sports, or oh, he's ungrateful for, he's not loyal. But like you said, if they're doubling your salary, tripling your salary, but you got to look out for yourself. But also at the end of the day, that move might change their life, not even from a money point of view, but for example, like we had Skylar went from Northern Illinois to Texas Tech. He's going to be drafted now just because that move. Exactly. So I talk to guys all the time. They're asking me, they're like, oh, I'm a captain at a MAC school. They're going to make me this, that, and they're going to pay me some money. But I'm like, dude, you could go to a playoff team and make 13 times the amount. If you make 3 plays on the national level, you could get drafted, right? Yeah. So I think the biggest thing is, like you said, exposure, money. But these coaches, too, they make them feel bad. Oh, you're not loyal, or you can make the NFL from here. You're out of the situation. It's so hard to make it the NFL if you're not in a P4 school. Only 23 players got drafted last year in non-P4s. Only 23. That's 1/20, like 1/15 of the whole draft, right? So it's just crazy because like those guys, there's great players at that level, but like go level up. It makes the most sense. And like you said, some of these guys are coming from bad backgrounds and stuff. So $200,000 is a ton of money for them, especially if you get a right advisor like you or someone else. Like you can really grow that money, and it's all guaranteed at the NIL level if you have a good agent doing your deal. Well, NFL, you see these contracts and stuff, and they're big, right? But they can cut you. You can get out of some money, right? So even if you sign, say, a $600,000 NIL contract, and you get hurt around the spring game or whatever, you got that $600,000
guaranteed money.
Guaranteed.
Yeah, not like in the NFL where it's not that way.
Yeah.
So one thing that I remember us having a conversation on was, and something that just reminded me, was have a player that making a decent chunk of change, right? And I'm trying to put myself, rewind the clock, and I'm 19 years old, and I'm getting, let's just say I'm getting monthly deposits that are close to $100,000. Number one, I was doing dumb things with a couple $100 in my bank account.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, I mean,
like, how are you guys giving guidance to these players from a safety, right, aspect of things, but also how they manage their, like, finances, or like just how do you guys manage that? Because it's like they are still, they're not kids, right? They're young men, right? But like they're still growing as an individual. Yeah. And the type of household that they're coming from is a lot different than maybe another sport, right? Like a baseball or whatever, tennis, golf, right? Football, it's a much more dynamic, and NBA, it's just a different household where you feel like, oh, because they came from that household, right? The thought is, well, maybe it's a 6 to 7 person household. He's got 5 or 6 brothers, sisters. and very little income, maybe they're on food stamps, to then all of a sudden they're getting hundreds of thousands of dollars, and you're like, oh, well, they should be able to save a ton of money. It's usually the opposite, because it's like they're not getting taught or learn that stuff at home. So how are you guys giving your players guidance when it comes to that stuff?
That's a great question. So, like, I don't know if you've seen the documentary Broke. It was like a 30 for 30. But like 70% of professional athletes, whatever, 10 years ago, like, all went broke because, like, the family situation. They got to look out. It's the most money they've ever seen. I remember when I was in college, I won $3,000 in Vegas. I thought that was the end of the world. Sometimes these players are making $3,000 a day if you're a high-end player, right? So it's like the reality situation is like, it's just so much different, and I couldn't imagine me being 19, 20, having that money. I wouldn't even know what to do with it, right? So there's kind of like multiple aspects. This one, you got to help them find a good financial advisor and all that stuff. Like, we have everything undertake when it comes to like marketing, legal, all that stuff, but you got to get them a good advisor, just because at the end of the day, like, I don't want that money, them deciding that money, right? I mean, hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars, you need a professional to do that. So, I mean, we work with a ton of them. Obviously, you're a great one. So we've done a good job with that. But also being an advisor to them more than just an agent and a friend, like kind of being hard on them, right? And I think like our approach too is even like on our pitch meetings with athletes and stuff, we're like, we're going to tell you what you need to hear, not what you want to hear, right? So like if I think like one of my players, I'm not going to call him out, but he was getting this, wanted to get this nice car. I'm like, dude, wait a year, bro. You could make $500,000 the next year. Like, why would you get this car now when you already have a car? Like, just relax. Like, put that money away. Get it with financial advisor and build that way. And like maybe some of the players like, oh, I don't want to hear that, whatever. But like my job is to help you and do it in your best interest, right? Because ultimately, there's a lot of guys out here to tell them what they want to hear, money, 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 and all this stuff. But then, 20 years from now, when they don't have that relationship, they don't care about that player. Like my goal is to have lifelong standing relationships with these guys, and it starts now. But being a big brother, educating them, getting them, with our lawyers, getting them with good financial people, that's the only way to really do it. And my thing is like, with having an agent and having a team off the field, you can focus on the field. Like, go play football. That's what they want to do anyways. Go in school, go play football, still be a college kid and stuff. Like, you shouldn't have to manage that money. You shouldn't have to worry about that stuff. That's why you have a team off the field. And I think the problem is, like, people are like, oh, I don't want to think about money or agent or whatever. But then they're dealing with that on their own, right? So then it takes them off the field. Oh, I'm going to lose this or whatever. But it's like, take that money that you make and give it to someone that's smart and kind of build that. And I think the majority of the industry is doing that. But at the same time, I think what makes us different and separates us is we're going to be honest with the player. Hey, you shouldn't spend that. Hey, you shouldn't do that. Because ultimately, not saying we necessarily, quote unquote, know more, but we've seen the horror stories, right? My dad and uncle have seen the horror stories. I've seen the horror stories just in these last 3.5 years of people wasting their money or losing their money. And the NFL time comes too, and they're hoping to get drafted, and they don't, and then they're done, right? Yeah. So it's the reality of the situation. It was like, you got to be honest with them, because some of the guys may make more in NIL than they make in the NFL, right?
I remember you saying that, which is wild, right? Like, to think about a college athlete, but it's, again, the landscape that we're in. It's the reality of the situation. And I think constantly, especially in football, your window is very, very small, and you have to maximize the window when you have it. And especially when you're young, you have the largest thing on your side when it comes to investing, which is the time.
Yes.
You have time to allow what Einstein called the greatest power in the world, which is compound interest, right? You have to allow it to work for you, not against you. And a lot of times what happens is like, oh, I'll invest when whatever. But it's like, you just have to start and to allow that compound interest to work for you. Because the reality is, some of your guys that you're repping may never play in the NFL, right? So they go 4 years. Let's say they're making $600,000. Like, obviously, they're not going to see all that because of taxes. But, it's like, man, you know what? Even if half of that was gone due to taxes and agent fees, whatever, $300,000, 4 years. Okay, now grow that at 7% over the next 30 years. Like, you're going to be a pretty solid situation if you're just being, I wouldn't even say smart, just using common sense. Like, just using basic common sense. But the thing that makes me most scared is like, man, these guys are going to go 4 years. This is the most money that they're ever going to make. They're going to piss it all away. And then maybe they try to go play overseas, whatever the situation is, go to Canada, have a 3-year career that amounts to not much of anything. And then they're sitting there going, now what do I do? Right? Their friends they've gotten their degree. They're maybe 4 years in, just starting their so it's like, you have this window to be way ahead in your worst case scenario. But I think the thing that I try to do is just try to, instead of saying, hey, just invest, like, show them. Show them, okay, because, again, they're coming from a different household, or maybe I mean, financial literacy isn't talked about.
No.
Right? Like we
crazy.
tell maybe our best friend, or mom, or dad, or sister, or brother about, some of your own. But outside of that, you don't really talk about it with other people. So
Yeah.
it's like, even the general population doesn't know. But it's like educating them, and then also showing them, hey, so this $300,000 that you're actually seeing, if you were to put 100 of it in, right, and we grew that at 7%, and then next year when you get this, and then you show them not just what's here, but what could be here in 30 years if you're just disciplined. You see the light bulb go off, and I think that's the challenging thing for maybe some of these agents that you're referring to or advisors is like, you have to remember that these guys are 18 to 21 years old, and you have to show them those things because to get them excited about investing when they don't even know what that is, good luck.
100%. And I think the thing about us is like we do a good job like vetting the advisors and meeting them and understanding they're good people because like as you know in your industry, like, there are people who like take the money and just kind of like hide and do whatever with it, right? They're not educating the players. So just like we educate them on the NIL, we call them the CEO of their business. When they open up the LLC, they are the CEO of their business. Start acting like a businessman. So get educated on the legal side, get educated on the financial side because at the end of the day, if those agents or financial guys are gone, you need to have that knowledge to do that, right? So I think the biggest thing is just like getting them with the right people, us vetting it. I mean, some of the advisors that I've given to my athletes, I have money under those advisors, so I tell them, like, it's good enough for me to put my money under them, like, why is it not good enough to put your money under them for that? So, and I think, too, they, like, make all this money, they're like, I'm going to save. Then Uncle Sam starts knocking on the door, and you're paying 30, 40% of your tax if you're making a ton of money, right? So why not just have that money be working for you in the meantime and growing? And I think people don't put aside money, like C.J. Stroud has, like, a whole podcast of it where like he didn't know his first year NIL like that he had to pay taxes on it and then they knocked on the door and he didn't have the money so he had to go do brand deals to get him paid to make that money back, right? So I think like educating them and understanding like this is the money you have and this is what you have to do for, like you said, it's like not fun and just saying, oh, like, I'm going to invest your money, make this, like show them the path to do that, right? And just like the LLC, when we open an LLC for them, we say, hey, you could put your parents as employees, you could buy a car through it, you could write off this, write off that. You want to go to Miami to go train with, your trainer and stuff, that's technically a part of your business, your body, your game is the business. Go put that on your LLC and do it instead of just putting on your personal and not getting any tax write-offs and saving money, that type of stuff. So we take pride in that. Like we don't make any money off that, right? Like opening up the LLCs, getting with advisors, we don't make any money off of that, right? But it's like makes me sleep good at night that we do that for our players and that we are doing it the right way, So some of these guys too have like, deals with banks or advisors and stuff like that and get paid on the side for like those intros and stuff. And like that is our number one thing is like we will never do that because it's a conflict of interest, right? And ultimately like if that person messes up, it's on us. Like we do a really good job of vetting the players' needs and also vetting the advisor and stuff like that and kind of seeing the relationship like that. And I'm sure you appreciate that too because your industry, there's just like mine, there's a lot of bad people out there doing the wrong stuff. And I think it's our job to advise, is educate them on what they need to do, but also vet that advisor and vet that system, right? So just like they need to vet us, right? So I mean, like, we're an open book too. Like we're not as scared to share information and do that. I mean, what meeting after meeting after meeting, explaining everything. We're an open book too, and like we let prospective clients talk to some of our current clients, because it's like a good way to like actually understand who we are as people. And I think that's how we're winning, man, is just being good people, going the right way about it, educating the players, and the money will come, right? I think, this famous guy, I think it was Alex Hormozi I was listening to, when I first started, he was like, be a good person and do things the right way and the money will come just because, how you're doing stuff the right way, people appreciate that and you're going to get more clients over time. If you're just chasing a dollar, for your clients and stuff like that, it could go a lot wrong.
Or you're trying to take a shortcut, because you could get to a path. I like to think that most people are good people and that there's a few bad apples.
Yeah,
but,
definitely.
There's definitely probably, I'd say the majority of agents are good people. Yeah. And there's a few bad apples, just like same could be said about advisors, right?
Exactly.
So I think that it ebbs and flows, but it's usually the bad apples that give all of us a bad name.
Yes, exactly, man. Exactly.
So if I'm 16, okay, and you guys approach me like at a high school level, just because I'm genuinely curious, like what sort of things are you providing value? Is it just mainly trying to get them connected to these schools where you have connections, which I'm sure that's part of it, but like beyond that, like why would I need to, be connecting with a group like yourself, from a name, image, likeness standpoint, like what types of conversations are you having with a 16-year-old that would be prevalent?
Yeah. So obviously it depends on the player, right? Like if he's a
Sure.
5-star, he's going to have different opportunities than a guy that's maybe like a 3-star or lower. But there's a couple things. So like first off, it's just educating them, right? Because like a lot of these, I have parents coming to me all the time like, what do we do? Like we don't know what's going on. And like because no one's teaching them this stuff. And there's not like a course you can buy online. And some of those stuff you can buy online, like the NIL course book, they try to sell this stuff like, those guys like aren't even in the industry, they're just like trying to make a buck off these kids and stuff like that. Because like a lot of agents aren't like,
I didn't even know that's a thing.
Yeah, you'll see like these guys on LinkedIn and stuff like, oh, NIL course book and stuff. They're like these like 50-year-old like professors who like haven't been in a single deal, right? And they're trying to like educate the players. But I think the first thing is education. Second thing, we're not a recruiting service, but we are connected at pretty much every school in the country, so I could like put names on radars and stuff like that. So I'm not going to go out there and get you an offer. Like your play speaks for itself, but I can get you in front of teams,
Sure.
players, stuff like that. So I've actually got a couple high school kids offers. One of Miami is a good example. One of them down there, and stuff like that. So we're not like a recruiting service. There's a different service for that, but we do a good job of getting their name out and putting their tape on radars and stuff, and kind of filling in the cracks of that. But the third thing is their deals, right? So like as freshmen, like that's maybe the most leverage they have going into college, like to do their NIL deals from a perspective of the revenue sharing and the deals.
Because you have nobody that you're currently affiliated. You're an open market free agent.
Exactly. And like with the portal and stuff and like retention deals, like you don't have as much leverage because you have to be in the portal and you got to have teams interested. But like some of these high-end high school players, they have like 20, 25 schools coming after them. So you have a ton of leverage in the negotiation. So that's why from the high school level, you'll do a 2-3 year deal maybe just because like you could break the bank. But also the team likes doing that because they have the security of that player for 3 years. They don't have to worry about the portal. Last thing a coach wants is a 5-star coming in. They pay him a ton of money. He dips after the first year, right? So you have a ton of leverage from the high school point if you're a high-end player. A good example of this is one of our players in Harrisburg, he had a couple schools around him and stuff, and we did the deal, and the deal kind of laid out what school was right for him, right? Because if one school is paying a kid, $400,000, the next school is paying him $100,000, where's he going to play sooner? Probably at the $400,000 because you're investing more and all stuff like that.
Makes sense.
So that's what we do is like we go in and we kind of like almost vet the schools in that instance from like a money point of view fit. Because let's be real, like these coaches and these ADs and stuff, they tell these high school recruits everything they want to hear. Oh, you'll be the best player, you'll be this, but is that the truth? Like probably not, right? So you have to go in and do their deal and kind of vet them from that point of view. So that's like our biggest service, and we've done a ton of deals from the high school level. Absolutely killed a couple of the deals with that, and that's why I think we're getting all these referrals from these high schoolers because they're like, this guy's like, hey, he just did my deal, got me paid and secured. I've seen the contract, it's written in writing, boom, all this stuff like that. So I think that's like really the biggest service that we provide, and I think some of the big agencies are getting into that too because they see it's there's money there and all stuff like that. But we've been on that for a while, so like we've seen that high school deals. And you got to set up your deal for college, right? So, like for example, if you're making $300 your first year, and you got to play in your first year and stuff, that's the minimum, right? So you're going to keep growing, right? Like if you go in and you just get walked in, don't have an agent, give you $5,000 a month or whatever, like it's hard to kind of benchmark where you're going from there.
Sure.
So that's kind of nice with that, and it helps us understand the market. And the fourth thing from the high school level is brand deals. So, most states, I think like 44 out of like the 50 states, you can actually like do brand deals out of your name, image, and likeness. It's changed. Arizona was legal last year. I think it was July 1st, 2024. Florida just became legal about a year ago. But like some states like Georgia, California, Pennsylvania, they've been legal for a while. So some of the deals we've done is like trading card deals or maybe like a local spot, does a deal with a player. We're actually working on an Aloe Yoga kind of deal with one of our high school guys now, like signing day stuff, because the signing days are big and, media on them, everything, especially if you're a high-end player. So, like, now you can make, not nearly as much as you do in college, but you could maybe make, like, up $100K until you get to college, right?
It's actually a really great idea.
Yeah,
like
it
on
is.
media day, because you
That's
have
what we
all
do.
the big, if you have a big guy,
100%.
right?
100%. Like a
And
big
they always
school.
do the 2 or 3 jerseys and pulling off hats, and you can do one with a company and be like, whoops.
And we actually kind of started that, to be honest. So 2023, Ethan Grunkemeyer, I was telling you earlier, the Penn State quarterback, is starting this week. He's from Columbus, Ohio. I knew him just like through family and stuff, and then saw what we were doing, and then we signed him. And Express Clothing, they're a pretty big clothing company, at least they used to. They're based in Ohio. And we knew a guy there, and we just like sold the idea. And like within 14 days, we got Ethan a signing day express deal. So it was sweet. Like at his signing day, signed at Penn State, he had express in the background, like decked him out with clothes, and he got a nice check from it too, like social media posts and stuff. But it was so cool because like that's kind of when, not necessarily we were starting, but like it was like a year in, and we kind of needed like one big thing, and right there like it sparked. I mean, there was like news articles written about it and stuff. So I take pride in that. When I was talking about signing day deals and stuff, like we did literally a major company. Like Express was almost like an Aloe like 10 years ago, like which kind of like their clout. So just having that deal go through was massive and gave us good standing with Ethan too. And he killed it. He did a great job with, the posts and wearing and all this stuff like that. But he was kind of a legend at his signing day, sitting up like, how'd you get that? How'd you get that? And all the other kids were committing elsewhere, and he was the one that had it because our idea to go and push that realm and stuff like that. But so it's really cool, like you said, to kind of do that. And it's a genius for the companies, right? Because, you have, you don't have to pay a lot of money, and you get your logo, connected with this player forever, pretty much. Like, hey, like go back to his signing day. Maybe when he's a quarterback in the NFL, they show his signing day. It's Express right there, right? Yeah. The news articles, the residual marketing, the social media, all that type of stuff, just really for not a ton of money. And so it's really cool for that as well. It's kind of an easy sell almost.
Yeah, it's such an undervalued market.
Yeah.
Like, and I don't think most companies know how to value it.
Put that together.
Yeah, like it's like the companies I feel like that are putting their necks out there on it are smart because it's like, let's just say that, player or just any player for that matter goes from a highly touted, 5-star to then actually keep progressing to be an NFL player. If you wait for them to get to the NFL, like that's probably going to be quadruple, or I don't even know where to start. So it's like the point of entry. Now, I know you specifically don't deal with like the brand deals. I'm sure there's a time and a place where it makes sense. But like, if I'm 16 and I'm a 5-star recruit committed to go to Power 4 conference, like, are there conversations to be had? Like, let's say like like a New Balance and some of these companies where it's like you kind of can create some sort of not bidding war. We don't want a bidding war, but like, hey, we're getting interest here, but like we don't want to commit because we want to see like almost like you're in the Shark Tank, right? And there's 5 sharks right there, and there's 5 different companies, and it's like, hey, what can you offer? Because we'd like to partner with you. Are those conversations being had, or not quite to that level?
Yes,
yet?
I mean, like I've done that in certain negotiations with some brands and players and stuff like that, because ultimately, like, you can't partner with every brand, right? So you need to be able to see like what each brand is going to pay and all that type of stuff. But like really, like the biggest thing is like putting the players on these brands' radar, right? Like I've heard this term 20, 30 plus times where like it's called dating, right? So you got to see like if the player like likes the brand, you got to make the intro before they're going to put a $30,000 check and make you an official partnered athlete, right? Like they got to send you stuff, you got to wear, you got to post it, kind of see what it's all about. So that does start at the high school level, right? Like Aloe Yoga sending our guys stuff, or like Travis Matthew, new company sending our guys stuff, like God Shop, the chain company sending our guys stuff, and like as time's progressed over time, we've seen those small deals, like those product deals and, just the initial intro lead to paid deals down the line, right? Because, if you're a company, you're not going to just throw 50, 100 grand without like, do they like the product? What are they organic? I don't know who they are. So it's kind of like that model where like, that's what's nice about these high school kids being able to do brand deals and getting all that stuff, because you can get them early. And then maybe when he is, like, for example, Bo at Ohio State, now he is a superstar. It's a lot easier to get him those type of deals because you already have that prior relationship with the company and the player.
Sure. And then are these companies direct outreaching to the player, the parents, or you guys? Because that's a huge concern of mine. I'm like, I'm 16. Overwhelmed I'd be if like some companies reaching out to me on, I'd be like, talk to my parents. I don't know.
Yeah. So it is like a lot of agents outreaching and getting them in front, but you will see like a player gets DM'd by a company or whatever. So, but what's nice about us is like we're the intermediary of that. It's like maybe they're trying to go through a player or parent, and maybe like trying to get them unfair terms, like we'll go in and we'll figure out those terms and all that stuff like that. But yeah, I'd say majority is us reaching out and going and getting it for the players.
Sure.
And really the players, like the ones that are focused on too much the brand side almost, like those are not the ones that are going to succeed. The ones that are focused on the field and want to be great and go make the league, those are the guys who are going to succeed. But you also got to make money and get connected to the brands on the side, and that's what we're here for, is because we can provide that service for them.
Yeah, interesting. Now, pivoting a little bit here, like where do you see the future of NIL? Just because we, even in the last year, have seen a lot of changes. Like, I know you alluded to the fact that you feel like the cap could continue to go up, but like outside of that, like where do you see things going?
Yeah, so it's going to keep going up. So college football is the second most watched sport in the United States, more than NBA, MLB, all of them.
Is NFL one?
NFL's one. Yeah, NFL's king, unfortunately. But
no.
But yeah, so college football is number 2, and you just see it too. I mean, just like 100,000, all across the country and stuff like that. So it's crazy, right? I mean, Penn State, you'll get 111,000 for a whiteout game. It's absolutely.
I gotta get there.
Yeah, it's sweet. It's the best.
What song is the one that they lose their minds to? It's a rap. The rap song, right?
Yeah. So Zombie Nation is the one like where after they score a touchdown, where it's like, oh.
I know that one. I thought it was another one before kickoff, maybe.
So when they walk out, they play like "Run This Town," you know. So that definitely gets going. But yeah, that just shows like the commitment to it, right? Like I mean, even NFL stadiums are only like 60, 70,000. So that's like what like people don't understand is how big college football is. I think like at the beginning, people were like, oh, NIL, whatever, college kids, but it's like second most watched sport in the country, right? And I think like that's a big thing. So it's going to continue to grow. I mean, these guys, they're like these multimillionaires, billionaires, like. Their life, some of these like is college football. The guy down in the South owns, whatever car dealerships and stuff, and he already's made his money and stuff, and he's like, what am I going to do with that money? I'm going to go pay the Alabama quarterback $1 million, right? So I think like that's the biggest thing is it's going to just keep growing, and as the TV deals keep going and going, like you said earlier off camera, like the private equity and stuff like that now coming into college football, like it's just going to keep growing. Who knows where that number is going to go? I've heard next year it could be 24, 25, and then I heard a 10-year plan it could end up being 40, and then the collective might be completely wiped. So it's going to keep growing. But I think what's cool about it is like these players are making the money they deserve, right? Like 10 years ago, these college kids were, like Saquon Barkley example, busting their ass for these guys or these schools and making the money, jerseys, all stuff like that, but not making any money. One knee injury their senior year, they may not make a dime, and it's a full-time job. Like last year, one of my players like sent me a schedule because sometimes like we'll schedule out like blocks of time to talk to players. So like 5 p.m. on Tuesday, that's when we call and stuff like that. So they sent me their schedule, and I was like, how do you guys even go to class, right? So like. It is a full-time job. They deserve to get paid. So that's what I love about NIL. A lot of people say, oh, it's ruining the game. But people just don't understand, right, that these guys are full-time jobs, and they could be doing other jobs with that time and making money. So, like, they're putting their life on the line. They're putting their daily schedule on the line to go get paid, and they're deserved of it. So NIL, the growth of it's hard to determine, right? Like, there's going to be regulation when it comes to the portal and stuff like that, and it's going to end up being more regulated, I think, but like we talked about earlier, it's kind of hard to regulate because you don't know the market value, you don't know where it's going to go. So I think the biggest thing is the cap's going to grow. I think there's going to be a lot more regulation, like the portal and tampering and all the stuff like that, because there's a lot of tampering with college athletes now. And I think the third thing is there's going to be more alignment with the agents and how to properly negotiate these NIL deals and stuff, because the NFL is an NFLPA and everything. There's not like that with college football, so there's not even a players union. So I think once that stuff comes too, it's going to help kind of weed out the bad actors and get the players more educated and all that type of stuff.
So it's such a tricky landscape, because I know like in different sports, like I've heard in basketball, like you have the uncle that's the player rep, and the uncle knows that he wants his cut. And it may not be in the best interest of the, so it's just like so tricky. And it's funny you mentioned that people say NIL is ruining sports. NIL is not ruining sports. Now, I would argue the portal, there's a case to be made there, right? But, like I don't think that'll ever be a thing. Maybe it changes, but like the portal is what is really, like if you had name, image, likeness the way it is, but with like the old transfer rules, I think it would sort a lot of things, but also I also understand from a player point of view, like it is. I mean, it's a great time to be, because like, okay, if I commit, I just know somebody that committed to a mid-major school, and it's like, what a great time to be in college sports from the standpoint of like, if I ball out, I enter the portal. Like previously, okay, I go there. I'm not playing, or maybe I have a dispute with the coach or whatever. I'm not getting playing time. I then want to transfer to another school because I'm not getting playing time. I then have to get penalized for that, have to sit out a year to then maybe, like, but then you're probably not going to do that because then, you need to play.
Yeah.
It's just it's a messy situation on both sides, but I think the portal is name, image, likeness is not. Name, image, and likeness is getting what the player should have been getting all along.
100%.
The portal just makes things tricky.
Yeah,
you know?
So there's two sides of the portal where like I see the downside, but I also see like the more positive. So if you were to give like the Ben Clouser approach to what the portal should be, I think you should have one-time unlimited transfer, right? So if you go to a school and you don't like it, you should be able to transfer. I hated the whole rule you had to sit out a year. Like that was just completely just unfair. I mean, you can transfer colleges if you're a normal student. Why can't you, if you're a player? So I think it needs to be a one-time transfer, let it go. And then I think the second one needs to be a certain penalty, like maybe not sitting out a whole year, but, you miss the first, couple games or something like that. Because, like you said, you can't just hop around, right? You can't just be like, oh, I'm getting paid here, I'm going to hop around and stuff like that. But if a coach sees automatic transfer, which it is now, you should be able to automatic transfer. A family or some issue, you should be able to transfer. Like the NCAA back in the day didn't even, mom was sick at home, and so they made him sit out a whole year if you transfer. It's absolutely crazy. So that would be my approach. And I agree, like hopping all around is crazy, but like you said, you can have life-changing money, right? Like, so for example, Skylar Go-Howard, our star D-tackle at Texas Tech, he was at Northern Illinois. Wasn't sure about transferring and stuff, but we're like, bro, if you want to make the NFL, you got to go level up, right? And it wasn't even about money, right? Like a lot of these agents would come, oh, you make this, make that, and
exposure.
stuff. And like, yes, it's exposure, man. And it's also like going to play in front of 70,000 on the biggest stage on national TV. Like that's the players' dreams. Obviously, their dreams playing in the NFL, but one of their dreams is to walking out of Penn State whiteout, walking out, Arizona State sold out, competing for the Big 12 title. Like that's just fulfilling too. And but anyway, Skylar decided to hit it and trust us to do his deal. About $1 million, close to that range, So we got him that, and now he's, playing on a national championship contending team, and couldn't be more happy. Like every other week, text, like I can't even believe it. Like I can't even believe where I was. And not saying he didn't love and appreciate Northern Illinois, and he did, but exactly. But his time just kind of was like, he was on his timing, and it was kind of God's plan for him to leave. So just seeing like those success stories has been awesome. I've never seen a player transfer not because of money and not enjoy it. So I've seen players, transfer because, I'm getting paid here somewhere else, and then they, didn't like it. But, the other reasons, you said exposure, or, hey, I got to develop for the NFL. I got to go against NFL offensive linemen each week, or I got to go against NFL corners and receivers and make myself better each week. Every time I've seen someone transfer like that, it's been successful. There's not been one bad story. But I have seen guys transfer just because money, go get an extra 50, 100 grand, and then they go to a crappy situation and hate it, right? So I've never seen a situation where someone's transferred for good reasons, or going home to family or whatever, that hasn't panned out, right? So,
well, I think Scat is probably a pretty good prime example of that. Which, by the way, I just saw his Sac State highlights.
Crazy. It's crazy.
It was hilarious.
Makes no sense how he didn't have other offers at high school.
But it's like he's a perfect prime example of what name, image, likeness can do. I mean, the guy's killing in the NFL right now, and it's like old rules.
Yeah,
maybe he doesn't even
get a chance.
Seriously, but like that's the reality of it, and it's funny because sports are like the only thing in the world in which if somebody leaves somewhere to take a better opportunity to help better them financially, is that you're critiqued on that. If you were working a corporate job and you're like, oh, you'll never guess, I got this unbelievable opportunity, it's going to double my income. People be like, that's awesome, but for whatever reason in the athletic world, it's a negative from a fan perspective. They're selfish, and it's like it's funny to think about because it's like anybody would do that.
100%. And I think the biggest thing is these players got to get over like, what are people going to think about me? What are my ex-teammates going to think about me? Like, you almost have to be a little selfish, man. Like, what's the best opportunity for me and my family, right? Where it's like you have no loyalty to the other school. If that coach, for example, say you're at like an Akron or whatever, if he got an SEC head coaching job, he's gone tomorrow. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, why can't you have that opportunity too? And that's why I try to educate players, and that's why I love what I'm doing, because I'm fighting the good fight. Like, I'm actually educating the players and trying to change their lives, is because that one move, Skylar's a perfect example, could change their whole entire life. Scat leaving Sac State to go to ASU changed his whole life, right? And a coach would do that too. So it's almost like block out the noise and maybe I'm going to get critiqued or I'm going to be called unloyal and stuff. But like at the end of the day, you have a short career. Do what's best for you, man. Like, you got to end up playing the long game, right? So I think the biggest thing is like getting the players to understand that, and it's hard. I've had some guys who I was talking to last cycle who were asking me, and unfortunately he didn't decide to transfer, and his team, it's a mid-major and they're 3-4 right now, and he could be playing on a team that's top 15 in the country, athlete, and making a ton more money. So it's like almost like I'm trying to just like educate the players because it is the best for them. It's not for me to make money. Like some of the guys who I've told this to, like I'm not even doing their deal and stuff. So it's like I'm not making money off it anyways. But I want these kids to know what's out there because the coaches and stuff and the fans like, oh, you're not loyal, or you're not this. But the reality of the situation, man, is like, no one's loyal in this industry if they're going to get a better opportunity. Not even money aside, just a better opportunity. Kalen DeBoer was in the national championship with Washington and left to Alabama, and like people were like, oh, he's unloyal and stuff like that. But Bama's just a better job than Washington, straight up, and they paid him more money and everything. So it's like I don't even blame him for going because it was a better opportunity for him and his family and growing himself as a coach. It's the same thing with the NIL and the portal and everything. And Scott's a perfect example. I mean, Sam Levitt transferred from Michigan State, so it's really just kind of comes down to blocking out the noise, I think, and the players understanding, hey, look, I'm my own person. I need to do what's best for me, and that's really what makes me fall asleep at night is I feel like I am doing the right thing by educating them to do that.
Yeah. Well, and I think, you make a good point of, like, all these decisions that these players are making, although they may seem like smaller decisions, like, that one decision alone can change the trajectory of their life.
Your life. Mm-hmm.
Like, obviously, at a much lower scale than some of these guys, but like I came down to Seattle University, which is where school went to school. But so I had a decision between Seattle University and Indiana State, and I was torn on that decision because I'm from that area. They're just starting the program back up. But they were going to be independent, and that was one of the biggest reasons why I didn't go there was because I wasn't sure if I was going to get the exposure that I needed. So I ended up making it, and it's like, I don't think and I obviously don't know, but it's like, if I was the same pitcher I was there, I'm not sure if I would have ever played professional
100%.
baseball. So it's like all those small little decisions that you make, and then I think about all the people that I met, and all the coincidences and all those things, like just based on one decision. And I think it's good that you're educating them on that because it was a extremely overwhelming process, and some of these coaches are good salesmen.
Oh, yeah.
Donnie Harrell's still the head guy at Seattle U. It was the worst phone call. One of the worst phone calls I ever had to make was to call him and tell him no.
Of course,
It's terrible.
Yeah.
But super good dude. I mean, all these small little choices are so meaningful later on in life, and Scat is the perfect example. Now, as we wrap up here, I always like to ask our guests, non-financial related, but it can be, what do you believe is like the best investment one can make in themselves?
I mean, I think like their body and themselves, I think like every person too like doesn't understand health's like the biggest thing you have, whether you're an athlete or a non-athlete, right?
Health is wealth.
Health is wealth, like I'll spend some certain stuff on, cryo or whatever, red light, health stuff and stuff because, if your body's a temple, right? So it's like if you're not taking care of your body, how's your brain going to operate? And it's same on the football field. Like I think a lot of guys are like, oh, like they'll just get their training from, their coaches and, the athletic staff and the training staff and all this stuff. But there's a lot of stuff where you got to spend money, your NIL money on like outside stuff, like maybe it's extra treatment or it's extra this or extra training, like go train with the best and the best at Exos or Miami or whatever and go from there. And a lot of guys instead will just put that money in a car or a chain or whatever. But it's like, what's that going to do for you long term? You know what I'm saying? So obviously investing in the market, financial advice is massive, but investing in yourself, not only as a businessman, but as like your body itself, right? You've got to stay healthy. You got to eat the best nutrition. And what's nice is the colleges definitely do a good job of doing that. But, I've seen players spend, tens of thousands of dollars like on their own personal training or themselves and stuff like that. And it's paid dividends, man,
Yeah.
And I think that is the biggest thing because your body, like LeBron spends $1 million a year on his body. Derrick Henry spends $1.5 million a year on his body, right? So I think that is the biggest investment is like, these young kids, oh, I'm 17, 18, whatever, I'm the best naturally, gifted athlete, all this stuff like that, eating at McDonald's and all this stuff, but like, it hits you quick, man. You got to stay 100%, in shape, 100% going every single day because ultimately, like, that is your business. Your body's your business. So I know it's kind of like an out-of-the-box answer, but I think that's the best investment.
I don't think that because even outside of the athletic world, let's just say you work a job till 65, but if you're not taking care of your body, it doesn't matter how much money you save.
Doesn't matter.
It's irrelevant if you die at 68 because you were treating your body like crap.
100%.
Like, so I don't think that's out of the realm. So that's a great point.
Yeah, and just putting your money too, like just not even the body side, like the financial side, like putting it in stuff that like you believe in. Like obviously, like if you're investing in stocks and stuff, like make sure you believe in those stocks. But also too, like we open a 501c3 for some of our players, like nonprofits. Like invest in something that like is going to motivate you and it's going to be around for a while. So like a good example of this is like if you're investing in a certain piece of real estate, right? You're not just investing in real estate to make money. Like you believe in that property, you believe what's going to go through. You know what I'm saying? So like some of the guys like will buy like a piece of real estate and then have their mom or dad Airbnb it. So now you feel fulfilled. You're like, I'm making my mom money. She can retire from being a nurse. She can do that for my money, and I'm invested in the property more. Yeah. So like invest in stuff that like you really do care about as well, long term. That also is going to turn to profit. Like don't invest just in a passion project and lose all your money. But I'm saying invest in stuff that you're passionate about, because the more passionate you are in something, the harder you're going to go for it, the better you're going to make it successful. It's like my job is like I'm super passionate about what I do, helping my players and stuff. So I wake up every day motivated to be the best, right? So if you love what you do, you're going to be the best at it. I think that's the reality of the situation. I don't think a lot of people follow that lead and stuff in today's society. There's all chasing money or it's safer and stuff, but like if you're passionate about something, you're going to make it work. You're going to make it successful. And I think that's the biggest thing, is investing in stuff that as players that you see a long-term vision or that you're going to be invested in. Maybe it's a piece of real estate, maybe it's a part of a company, maybe it's a nonprofit, or maybe it is like a stock or whatever. But like when you're gone, when you play 10, 15 years in the NFL, you got to fall back on something, right? And I think, seeing some of my dad's guys who didn't have the NIL area, which was so unfortunate, and played 6, 7 years in the NFL, but they didn't do the right job with their money, or they gave it away and stuff like that. And now they have to just do normal jobs, which I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but they probably would like to be invested in something that they believed in, that they invested in for 30 years. So
now they got bad knees and no money.
Yes, exactly. No, it's true, man. And the CTE and all that stuff's real, man. Yeah. So you got to be able to, and that's something I don't even blame some players for retiring early, because it's a dangerous game, but make sure you have that foundation of money or assets that is going to keep you able for the next 30 years.
That's a good answer. Yeah. Now, where can people find you? Are you on social media?
Yeah, so I'm on Instagram, just Ben Clouser, LinkedIn, Benjamin Clouser, our page on Instagram, YoungBuck Sports Management, LinkedIn, all this stuff like that. We also are on Twitter and X and stuff like that. But we post our deals, we post our athletes on there. We're pretty open about it too. Yeah, so we like kind of keeping people informed and all that type of stuff. But yeah, my Instagram, Ben Clouser, YoungBuck Management's our Instagram. Yeah.
You never know where the next meaningful connection could come from.
Yeah, definitely, man.
Awesome, Ben. I really appreciate you joining, and I look forward to staying in touch and seeing you guys grow.
Yep, thanks, Jason. Appreciate it.
Any opinions are those of Jason Van Skyke, financial advisor, and not necessarily those of Raymond James. Any information is not a complete summary or statement of all available data necessary for making an investment decision and does not constitute a recommendation. Expressions of opinion are as of this date and are subject to change without notice. This information is not intended as a solicitation or an offer to buy or sell any security referred to herein. Investments mentioned may not be suitable for all investors. There is no guarantee that these statements, opinions, or forecasts provided herein will prove to be correct. Past performance may not be indicative of future results. Investing involves risk, and you may incur a profit or loss regardless of strategy selected. Indices are not available for direct investment. Any investor who attempts to mimic the performance of an index would incur fees and expenses which would reduce returns. International Headquarters: the Raymond James Financial Center, 880, Carillon Parkway, St. Petersburg, FL 337, 16-800-0248-863, RaymondJames.com, copyright 2024. Raymond James and Associates Inc. member, New York Stock Exchange, SIPC, copyright 2023. Raymond James Financial Services, Inc. member, FINRA/SIPC. Raymond James is a registered trademark of Raymond James Financial Inc. Investment products are not deposits, not FDIC, NCUA insured, not insured by any government agency, not bank guaranteed, subject to risk and may lose value.